Hi, my name is Dr. Michael L. Johnson. I'm a board-certified chiropractic neurologist. I'm the author of this book, What Do You Do When the Medications Don't Work? A Non-Drug Treatment of Dizziness, Migraine Headaches, Fibromyalgia, and Other Chronic Conditions. I also consult with over 1,000 chiropractors across the country, and I'm here today to talk to you about autism and autism spectrum disorders like Asperger's and PDD-NOS. So, with that, let's get into it. What makes us different from every other doctor that you have seen? I will tell you, we treat your child metabolically and neurologically. And we're going to get into specifically what those two terms mean in this video. So you're watching this DVD or this video on my website because someone you love is suffering from autism. Well, I'm here to tell you that no stone is left unturned to determine the exact cause of your child's autism, but let's look at some staggering statistics before we go into all of the treatments. Shocking facts about autism. 1 in 150 children is diagnosed with autism. 1 in 58 boys is on the autism spectrum disorder area. And this is from autismspeaks.org. autismspeaks.org. 67 children are diagnosed every day. A new case is diagnosed almost every 20 minutes. This, folks, is an epidemic. More children will be diagnosed with autism this year than with AIDS, diabetes, and cancer combined. Autism is the fastest growing serious developmental disability in the U.S. Autism costs the nation over $35 billion per year, a figure that is expected to significantly increase in the next decade. Folks, it's an epidemic. Autism receives less than 5% of the research funding than many other childhood diseases. Boys are 4 times more likely than girls to have autism. 30 out of 100, or 30%, of autistic kids and children going into adulthood have engaged in theft, and 25 of these kids, 25 out of 100, 25% will be expelled from high school for misconduct. So I will guarantee you right now, right here, that what I'm about to tell you, no one else has told you. I'm going to tell you what makes my program unique, and I'm going to tell you how I successfully treat autism spectrum disorders. So what makes my program unique? I treat both sides of the brain, the right brain and the left brain, hemispheres. So in order to fully understand autism, Asperger's, PDD-NOS, we must look at these conditions in terms of hemispheres or sides of the brain. And we understand what each side normally does for a child, and when they are in balance, they're integrated, then we can understand what goes wrong when they're unbalanced. Okay, when there is this functional disconnection. So let's talk about the right brain, the right hemisphere. It is the brake pedal. It has to do with withdrawal responses, stop movement, stop thought. Controls gross motor, postural, big movements. It likes low frequency stimulation. It is the where part of the brain. Where is it? The right brain has to do with social learning. Okay? Has to do with social interactive. It's nonlinear, creative. Nonverbal communication has to do with the face and the eyes and the body. You know, when somebody says, "I love you," and that's your right brain saying, maybe they don't love me as much as they say they do. It's stimulated by new stimuli. It has to do with reading and math comprehension. It is the sad brain. And I will tell you that the majority of autistic kids have a right brain deficit, a right brain, a right hemisphere decreased frequency of firing. I didn't say all, I said the majority. Now the left hemisphere is the gas pedal. It goes. It initiates movement. It initiates thought. It controls fine motor movement. It likes high frequency stimulation. It's the what part of the brain. It has to do with memorization. It's very linear, analytical, very left brain person. Has to do with verbal fluency. It likes routines, sameness. It's the happy brain. So if your left brain isn't firing, you're depressed. The brain out of balance. The brain out of balance loves TV, video games, and computers. If your child is autistic, you need to limit the amount of TV, video games, and computer time. The brain out of balance likes sameness, routines, and rituals. It often has great memory, normal and often above average intelligence, but has poor social skills, poor verbal skills, tantrums, poor emotional control. It's very self-directed, not very passive, tendency to fidget or stay moving, often has sensory issues. So why, with your autistic child, were there language delays? And you see, I know this, I own it, it's a part of me. Let me tell you why. I have 5 kids. My wife and I have 5 kids. Joe, our oldest, 24, graduate of MIT, brainiac. Kate, very smart, graduate of Boston University. Mary attends University of Wisconsin at Madison. Jen, senior in high school, probably going to go to Duke. And our 7-year-old, Jake, who was slow to walk, slow to talk, and slow to potty train. I know this stuff, folks. I live it. So why the language delays? The right hemisphere is responsible for nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication is the foundation of verbal communication. So you have something called Broca's speech area if you're right-handed in the left frontal lobe. But it's the right brain that has to develop fully before this Broca's speech area kicks in. Nonverbal communication, foundation of verbal communication, understanding one's feelings, understanding facial expressions, body language, etc. That's what nonverbal communication is, folks. Without these basic pillars of communication, appropriate verbal communication is delayed. So if you don't get that right brain working, the left brain isn't going to kick in. One method to encourage appropriate speaking in autistic children is to work on building the foundation, nonverbal communication. What are the sensory problems? Sensory problems are not the problem with the particular sense, but it's a problem with the frontal lobes. The frontal lobes are your personality and inappropriate withdrawal responses to sensations. Traditional treatment options mean medications. Medications do not affect the right or left brain. It affects the brain globally. And I'm not here to tell you to stop taking medications or have your child stop taking medications. I am here to tell you that playing Russian roulette with medications isn't serving your child. So what we do is get your child better, and then what happens, you go back to your MD and ask that the medication be decreased or eliminated. These traditional treatments, as I mentioned, don't take into consideration the issue of hemispheric imbalance. Right brain decreased, left brain decreased. Decrease what? Decrease frequency of firing. Decrease firing in the brain. So what specific side? And I said with autism, it's usually decreased right brain. But what part of the right brain? Parietal lobe, temporal lobe, frontal lobe, cerebellum. Cerebellum fires to frontal lobe. Cerebellum controls your balance and coordinated movement. Many autistic kids have poor coordinative skills, poor coordination. That's that cerebellum not working. Cerebellum controls all the spinal postural muscles. It terminates eye movement. What about metabolic capacity? We use a term in chiropractic neurology called exceeding metabolic capacity, meaning you did too much, you overstimulated, the patient got worse. So when is enough too much? What is the stamina of the area? That's why we test, treat, and retest. So the question becomes, how do I successfully treat autism? And I will tell you by using specific metabolic and neurological testing and treatments. It's right and left hand. We're going to cover the right hand first. That's the metabolic side. Specific metabolic testing and treatments. Some of you already know this. You've been on websites. And thank God you already know it. Some of you don't. We need to do sensitivity testing to determine if your child is sensitive to gluten, and that's a big one, milk, eggs, soy, and yeast. Just about all the autistic kids that I see and the other doctors that I teach on how to treat autism, there's gluten sensitivity at the very least. I'll tell you, I had the sensitivity testing done, and I'm sensitive to gluten, soy, and milk.